Hey all, this video series is a part of training course of SISU Motorsport Endurance team. It's a collection of most common mistakes that are rarely mentioned in other training materials. Based on my personal experience, some adjustments may be necessary for you. Less fluff, more to the point. Let's go. Okay, how to set the pedals. I prefer the linear settings in my pedals. You can take more progressive or degressive line if you want to, but I would advise to use just linear settings and get used to it. You don't need to relearn your pedal if you decide to move to other profile because it doesn't suit some car you are driving now, for example. And calibration. Okay, I just put my legs on the pedals and you see brake and throttle are out of the lowest bounds. That's what I'm looking for. Pushing throttle to the high. Well, you can see I can have wider throttle range, but I prefer it this way. So if I release some throttle pressure, it still feels like full throttle for me, but you can see it can float here and there because I have a float self-throttle. I give a margin, but now I'm starting to decrease it. And as you can see, it's pretty comfortable. I can decrease it slowly, smoothly, all the way down. Okay, brake, the same. Full braking. It's almost 100%. Well, for racing, I'm using like 95, and I keep it there and slowly decreasing. My back is still on my seat. I'm sitting comfortably. No tights, no other stuff in my back, in my leg. I feel good, I feel comfortable, and that means I can learn these pressures. It's still braking zone, like 10th of percent, and yes, I can feel it, and the difference is here, and bam, I'm in the racing position. That's what you are trying to get here. The dead zone cut, very moment when you decide from going from zero brakes to something brakes. So you always should feel the difference between no braking and slightly touching the pedal, slight braking. No braking, slight braking. Pay attention for it, at least while you're getting used to your pedals, and move this cutoff point accordingly. Okay, steering wheel settings. An example is Moza R9, but it's more or less similar to any wheel and any base. I'm using 720 degrees. It's quite comfortable for me to reach both ends without too much wheel rotation. You can use 720 as minimum. If you choose lower, you will limit the racing range and it will start compress the highest range. It's not a big deal if your wheel isn't supporting the high degrees of rotation. It have good sensitivity in the middle, and then the closer you get to the limit, the faster it will get rotated. It will be not non-linear motion. It's fine, but if you have a proper wheel, I recommend using 720 at least. The distortions will not be there, or even if they will be minimum. Also, you can just put whatever degree you want and call it a day, because iRacing will limit you to the steering angle of the real car. Regarding the force feedback, use just 100% force in your drivers. Again, an example of Moza. Sorry. I've set the bump stops to the hardest values. It gives bounciness. I guess you see this bouncy motion, but I'm used to it, and I want to know when I'm exceeding my steering rotation, so yes, I want them as hard as possible. Game force back density 100%, output torque 100%, and limiting a bit maximum wheel rotation speed. 90% in my case is more than enough. And I'm then using hands of protection because iRacing have built-in big forces protection, so they kinda sometimes fight each other and you lose feedback, big bumps, curbs, and that's not ideal. At least it was before, and I never used it since then. I recommend to not use any of these effects here. I added a bit of natural friction to give some weight to the wheel and natural damping to compensate high oscillations, but overall if you're running them on zeros, you are good. It kinda may affect the way you feel force feedback in your car, So at least try without them. Just try, drive a bit. If you don't like something, okay, add friction, add damping, but not before it. Just try the pure force feedback of the game. In Equalizer, I reduced the high frequency forces to 0 because I don't need them. They just, well, simulate kinda road surface, engine vibrations, suspension, motion and all that stuff, and they are kinda useless and gamish and gives the grainy feeling in the steering wheel. That's why I don't like R-Factor 2 force feedback. It's a bit, too detailed, too grainy. It's like when I drive the real car, I can't count the number of sand grains I drove over. Well, I don't want to feel it in the game too. Main forces are, of course, in the low range. It's your input, it's big curves, big bumps, and you will feel it here. So that's it, full force, at least at the beginning. If your wheel is too strong, it's better to adjust it in the game. So let's go in the game. So we are in settings, we calibrated steering, calibrated pedals, calibrated all the buttons. We are good. We got wheel range 711 instead of 720. It's fine. Whatever the wizard calibrated, it's fine. If you have load cell, brake pedal, click on here or reduce force factor to 0. And of course max range set to 100. You can look at my settings. I don't use any of driving aids just because to get used to drive without them. Driver's height and horizon I keep on 0. If you set up your monitor as I said, you will have no problems with this. Field of view, a ton of guys how to calculate it, so won't repeat. And here is feedback settings. Set your wheel force here, set your intensity, I'd say from 50 to 100. What is intensity? Well, tooltips says that controls how strong the force feedback will be when using the auto button in the F9 black box. Yep, if you have default intensity on 50, you will have more smoother feedback without big spikes. I prefer have the spikes, take them into account, and I'm using 95. How to set up strength, we will talk a bit later. Display and graphics settings, well, I'm using almost everything at low. I prefer frame rates over the beautifying the world, but if you want to dive deeper into it, hours of videos where people testing it on different equipment and showing difference in the FPS, well, I'm not gonna dive into this can of worms. Do it yourself, please. The main thing about sound level that you want to hear tires. So tires all the way up, everything else, as you can see, is down. And that's it. So how to set proper force feedback? You came out of the pits, open this black box, you can see FFB strength here, and try to drive. And as you can see, appeared the auto button. So when you click auto button, it will set a force feedback for you. Nothing changed for me, it's set fine. If you don't feel good, you can reduce force feedback or increase it beyond the auto limit. But for me it works pretty well. It gives a good and clean force feedback without clipping. That's what we strive for. The first number represents some arbitrary value called force. The higher it is, the stronger is feedback, and the second is the Newton meter value. It's the opposite. The higher it is, the lower force feedback will be felt. This shows that the maximum force that the car steering column produced on my run was 21.4 Newton meters. So it will assign this value to the maximum force, and my wheelbase will deliver full 9 Newton meters when the steering column hit this force. And other forces scaled through here. You haven't seen this. And after you hit in your auto button, If you have profiled this car only, it will be saved only for this car, and you will need this for other cars, which you should do. Every car is different and force feedback is different. It's better to do this for each car. If you have all cars, it will be changed for all cars. Not ideal, do not recommend. Also, not all settings are present in the game settings in the UI. iRacing have some hidden, let's say that settings, or at least settings that don't have the UI controls for them, and let's take a dive into it. This file called app.ini, it's in your documents iRacing folder. You can change chat messages here, the one that people use to say sorry or something, you can use them for something more useful, like for refueling, like for changing pit stop, setting the tires you want to change, and etc. Among the force feedback settings, there are settings at the bottom that affects the bump stop. I'm always was unhappy about default bus stops. You can see this setting, steering bump stop degree. The default value is too high, so you reach the bump stop where you're exceeding the steering of the car you're driving, and you can turn the steering wheel 45 degrees more before the real hard bump stop. And well, it's a bit confusing when you're driving, like you can't say are you on the limit of steering column rotation or not, so reduce it to, you know, from 0 to 10 degrees to make an instant feedback that you have a full steering lock. Also, pit service is the whole section that is not covered in the UI. After fuel default enable. So auto fuel is always enabled. Well, turn this off just because I want to control my pit stops by myself. Auto reset fast repair and auto reset pit box. It automatically turn on pit service when you exit pit road. I don't need this. I turn this off, and using fast repair automatically doesn't make sense either, because if you have a scratch, it will be repaired for the cost of the full fast repair. Not ideal, so turn this off. Spotter settings as PCC. Car low high at start. If you set 1, you will get calls about car on the left, car on the right sooner after the green flag. Car low high padding, it's a clearance in meters from front and back before calling the clear. I've set it to 0.1. It's like 10 centimeters, but spotters still have margin larger than this by my experience, so turn right after the clear call, you won't crash into the car still. Mute spotter if live, reduce verbosity if live, set to 0. In team races, if you start spotting your teammate and teammate have the settings on 1 as by default, he won't hear the spotter at all, the in-game automatic spotter at all. He will be rely on your information. It's not ideal. Let's in-game spotter to do this stuff. Split deltas, you can change guest car transparency and guest car offset. It's not ideal when you're chasing someone who is, well, approximately on your speed, so when it appears, it will be right in your car. You can't follow him properly, so set ghost car offset like half a second, so the car will be half a second ahead of you, and you can see it. And transparency, just control the level of transparency you prefer. The view box, here you can adjust cockpit look angle. It's the angle on which your head turns when you press look left or look right. Also, you can change look up angle, look down angle. I'm using 35 for side, 8 for down, and 5 for up. That's, I found, the most comfortable for me. And cockpit look instant is your head will be moving when you press the button or instantly get into the position. Well, I recommend instant, but some say it's not comfortable for them, so choose the suit that suits you. Okay. That's it. Thanks for watching. See you next episode.